Under the vast, starlit sky of the Grand Canyon, seasoned hiker Alex Monroe was on a routine solo trek when an otherworldly glow illuminated the canyon's cliffs. Pausing in awe, he spotted a sleek metallic object hovering silently above the abyss. A chilling hum pierced the stillness, and before Alex could react, a beam of light enveloped him, pulling him toward the craft. What began as a peaceful hike would soon spiral into an adventure that challenged humanity's perception of reality itself. Alex Monroe was no stranger to the Grand Canyon's vast, rugged beauty. For years he had hiked its endless trails, seeking solace in the canyon's raw, untamed wilderness. Tonight, the crisp autumn air wrapped around him as stars glittered above, a reminder of nature's vastness. Equipped with his backpack and a headlamp, Alex ventured along a secluded trail, one known only to seasoned hikers like himself. The trail, winding and uneven, demanded his full attention. But as Alex approached a narrow ridge overlooking a shadowy abyss, a strange light caught his eye. At first, he assumed it was a distant helicopter or a reflection from the Colorado River below. But the light moved differently, darting abruptly, pausing mid-air, then hovering as if alive. It emitted a faint glow, unlike any man-made source Alex had seen. Curiosity overrode his unease. He switched off his headlamp, letting the canyon's natural darkness envelop him. His eyes adjusted, and the faint, otherworldly light became clearer. It wasn't stationary. It pulsated, shifting colors between vibrant blues and greens, casting shimmering patterns on the canyon walls. The object producing the light was unmistakable, an oval-shaped craft, metallic and smooth, floating in defiance of gravity. It moved with a fluidity that no earthly aircraft could replicate. Alex's pulse quickened. His instincts told him to turn back, to retreat to the safety of the trailhead. But he couldn't look away. He edged closer to the ridge, trying to make sense of what he was witnessing. Every step brought him closer to an overwhelming realization. This was no ordinary aircraft. It was something beyond human comprehension. Reaching for his phone, Alex fumbled to open the camera app. His hands trembled as he tried to steady the frame. The hum emanating from the craft was growing louder, deeper, resonating through his chest like a second heartbeat. The moment Alex hit the record button, his phone screen flickered and went black. He tapped the power button in vain. The device refused to respond, as if the craft disrupted its functionality. Then it happened. A beam of light shot down from the craft, enveloping Alex in its glow. It wasn't blinding, but it was all-encompassing, wrapping him in a cocoon of warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold night air. He froze, unable to move, his body weightless as if suspended in water. Every fiber of his being screamed to flee, but he was powerless. The beam lifted him slightly off the ground, his boots dangling inches above the rocky terrain. Time seemed to blur. The canyon, the stars, even his own body felt distant, as though they belonged to another world. Alex's mind raced with questions. What was this thing? Why him? And what would happen next? Just as quickly as it began, the light released him. He collapsed onto the rocky ledge, gasping for air, his limbs trembling from the ordeal. The craft, now ascending rapidly, disappeared into the night sky, leaving only silence in its wake. Alex lay there for what felt like hours, staring up at the unchanging stars. His phone, mysteriously returned to his pocket, buzzed softly, its screen glowing as if nothing had happened. But Alex knew better. His surroundings felt different, as though the canyon itself had shifted in some imperceptible way. The air carried a faint hum, a lingering echo of the craft's presence. As he stood, shaky but determined, he knew one thing for certain. His life had changed forever, and whatever he had encountered, it was only the beginning. The days following Alex's encounter passed in a surreal haze. Back at his cabin near the Grand Canyon's south rim, he replayed the events obsessively, searching for logic in the inexplicable. Online forums offered no answers. UFO sightings were common in the area, but his experience, the beam, paralysis, and vastness, was uniquely haunting. It was too vivid to dismiss as imagination. Physical anomalies deepened his confusion. His compass, reliable for years, now spun erratically, refusing to find north. His phone occasionally glitched, displaying strange symbols he didn't recognize. Most unsettling of all was the persistent feeling of being watched. Determined for answers, Alex returned to the ridge, armed with a new phone, a video camera, and a stronger flashlight. The trail was eerily silent, the usual calls of wildlife replaced by an oppressive stillness. As he reached the spot of his encounter, a familiar hum returned. Faint at first, but growing louder. His breath quickened as the glow reappeared, casting the canyon in an unearthly light. The craft was back. Its metallic surface shimmered, reflecting the stars like liquid mercury as it hovered closer. Alex raised his camera, trembling as he recorded. The craft moved deliberately, its presence commanding yet silent. A sudden beam of light engulfed him again, but this time he wasn't paralyzed. The light felt inviting, even comforting. "Do not fear." The voice wasn't spoken. It echoed in his mind. Alex gasped as the light lifted him gently. Despite his instincts to resist, a profound calm washed over him. He surrendered to the beam's pull and ascended toward the craft. Inside, the craft defied imagination. Walls pulsed with shifting colors, the air crisp yet scentless. The space felt alive, vast yet enclosed. Then he saw them. Two beings stood before him, humanoid yet otherworldly. Their glowing skin, elongated limbs, and large almond-shaped eyes exuded wisdom and authority. "You are Alex Monroe," one said telepathically. It wasn't a question, but a statement of certainty. He nodded, too stunned to speak. "You have been chosen," it continued. "Your world stands at a crossroads. We observe, guide, and prepare, but your choices will determine your survival." Images flooded Alex's mind, scenes of Earth in chaos, natural disasters, war, but also hope, humanity uniting, thriving. The second being's voice was softer, almost kind. "It is not too late, but time is fleeting." The light intensified and Alex felt a sudden pull. He was ejected from the craft, landing back on the ridge with a jarring thud. Gasping, he looked up just in time to see the craft vanish into the night sky. Alex lay there, his heart pounding. What had he just witnessed? And what did they mean by chosen? Whatever this was, it wasn't random. It was only the beginning. The days after the encounter left Alex in turmoil. His attempts to rationalize the event only deepened his confusion. His phone continued to glitch, his compass remained unreliable, and the eerie sense of being watched grew stronger. Even simple errands felt heavy with unease, as if unseen eyes followed his every move. Desperate for clarity, Alex called Dr. Ellie Carter, an astrophysicist and a trusted friend. Ellie had spent years studying the cosmos from an academic lens, but her open mind made her the only person Alex could confide in. When he recounted the details, the craft, the beings, their cryptic warnings, she didn't laugh or dismiss him. Instead, her voice grew serious. "Alex, if even half of what you're saying is true, we need to investigate," she said. Ellie arrived at Alex's cabin the next evening, equipped with scientific tools, electromagnetic field detectors, cameras, and a Geiger counter. Together, they returned to the ridge. The night was still, the canyon eerily quiet. As Ellie set up her instruments, Alex scanned the horizon, unease gnawing at him. "This place is charged," Ellie muttered, staring at her readings. "Electromagnetic activity is through the roof." The hum began again, faint at first, but unmistakable. Alex tensed as the light returned, flooding the canyon in a shimmering glow. Ellie gasped, her equipment sparking as it failed. Moments later, the craft emerged, its metallic surface glinting under the stars. Ellie froze, torn between awe and fear. The beam of light shot down, enveloping them both. For Alex, the sensation was less overwhelming this time, almost familiar. The beings were there. He could feel them. "They're watching," Alex whispered. "I think they're trying to communicate." Ellie said nothing, her wide eyes fixed on the craft. The beam retracted, and the craft descended, vanishing into the sky. The silence that followed was deafening. Back at the cabin, Ellie paced, her mind racing. "This isn't just an anomaly," she said. "This is intelligent, and if they're observing us, there's a reason." Alex nodded. "They said the world is at a crossroads. I think they want something from us, but I don't know what." Ellie frowned, deep in thought. "Then we need to find out. If they're reaching out, there's a purpose behind it. And we need to be ready." The next few days were tense. Alex noticed unfamiliar vehicles parked near his cabin, and strangers seemed to linger too long in the small town. Ellie's equipment occasionally picked up faint signals, irregular electromagnetic pulses and strange static, but nothing conclusive. It felt as though unseen forces were watching their every move. One evening, Alex awoke to find his phone flashing. The strange symbols he'd seen before had returned, but now they formed patterns, shapes that almost looked like maps or coordinates. He showed Ellie the next morning, and she analyzed them with growing excitement. "This could be a message," she said, her voice trembling. "They're trying to guide us somewhere." But where and why remained mysteries. Whatever had begun on the ridge wasn't over. Alex and Ellie were part of something far larger, and the consequences were only beginning to unfold. The coordinates Ellie deciphered from Alex's phone led to a remote plateau deep in the Grand Canyon, far from any marked trails. The journey would take days on foot, but it seemed their only option. With supplies packed, they set off before dawn, driven by a mix of curiosity and fear. The first day passed uneventfully, the rugged terrain demanding their focus. By nightfall, they camped under the stars, the vastness above reminding Alex of the craft's strange interior. Sleep came in fragmented bursts, with Alex haunted by visions of lights and cryptic voices. On the second day, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew still and heavy, and the usual sounds of wildlife were absent. Ellie's compass spun erratically, mirroring Alex's. "It's behaving just like yours," she muttered, her concern evident. Landmarks began to change. Familiar paths faded, replaced by rock formations neither remembered. It felt as though the canyon itself was alive, shifting with their every step. By the third evening, they reached the coordinates. The plateau was unlike anything they'd seen. The rock surface was unnaturally smooth, and a circle of stones arranged with unnerving precision dominated the center. Ellie approached cautiously, her instruments faintly humming. "This isn't natural," she whispered. "The energy here is different." Before Alex could respond, the hum began, low and resonant. The plateau was bathed in a pulsating light as the metallic craft appeared, its presence overwhelming yet oddly familiar. A beam of light descended, enveloping Alex and Ellie. This time they both surrendered, unable to resist. Inside the craft, the air was still, the walls alive with shifting patterns. Floating orbs cast a soft glow, illuminating the chamber. The beings materialized, their forms glowing faintly, their movements deliberate. "You have come," one said, its voice echoing in their minds. "Your arrival begins the next phase." Ellie, her voice trembling, asked, "Who are you? Why us?" The being regarded her silently before answering. "We observe and guide. Your world teeters on transformation. You will witness and act." Images flooded Alex's mind. Earth in turmoil, melting glaciers, storms, wildfires, conflict, but also moments of hope and unity. "Humanity's potential is vast," the being continued. "Your choices determine your survival." A shimmering panel emerged from the wall displaying patterns and symbols. Understanding begins here, it said. Alex reached out to touch the panel. A surge of energy coursed through him as the chamber dissolved into a cosmic vision. Stars, galaxies, and infinite voids surrounded him, leaving him awestruck. He felt insignificant yet deeply connected, as though part of something infinite. When the vision faded, they were back on the plateau. The craft was gone, the night sky unchanged. Ellie sat in stunned silence, her hands trembling. "They're showing us the stakes," Alex said quietly. "We need to figure out what it means." The journey back was heavy with unspoken thoughts. The beings had entrusted them with a message, one too vast to ignore. Alex and Ellie knew their lives, and perhaps the fate of humanity, had changed forever. The trek back from the plateau was quiet. Alex and Ellie spoke little, their minds consumed by the beings' warnings and the burden of understanding their meaning. By the time they reached Alex's cabin, their exhaustion was matched only by the weight of the unknown. Ellie dove into analyzing the patterns Alex had sketched from memory, her scientific curiosity ignited. Alex, meanwhile, couldn't shake the feeling that the symbols held more than a warning. They were a clue. A knock at the door broke their focus. Alex hesitated before opening it, revealing an older man in a park ranger's uniform. His stern expression and deliberate demeanor immediately set Alex on edge. "You're Alex Monroe," the man said. "Who's asking?" Alex replied. The man stepped inside without invitation. "Samuel Drayton, I've been following your trail. You've uncovered something ancient, something long hidden." Ellie frowned. "What do you mean?" Samuel unfolded a map onto the table. The intricate symbols mirrored the patterns from the craft. This map predates recorded history. It came from an ancient civilization that was wiped out under mysterious circumstances. Their warnings were meant to guide those who would come after them. Ellie examined the map. "Why now? Why show us this?" Samuel's face darkened. "Because time is running out. These beings intervene only when absolutely necessary. Your encounter wasn't chance, it was a call to action. Humanity is at a crossroads, just as others were before us." Alex's mind raced. The beings' cryptic messages and Samuel's revelations painted a dire picture. "What are we supposed to do?" "You need to decode this map," Samuel said. "The answers lie in what they left behind. But you must be cautious. There are forces that will stop at nothing to keep this buried." "Who?" Ellie asked. "The government?" Samuel nodded. "And others. They've been watching you since your encounter. We have to move now." A sudden noise outside froze them. Samuel drew a pistol and motioned for silence. Peering through the window, Alex spotted shadows moving near the tree line. "They've found you," Samuel whispered. "We leave now." Quickly gathering what they could, the trio slipped into the forest. The night was alive with tension, every sound amplifying their fear. Samuel led them to a battered SUV hidden on a secluded trail. "Get in," he ordered. The drive was tense, the roads winding endlessly through the dark. Alex clutched the map tightly, his mind racing. Whatever secrets it held, they were now at the center of something far larger than they'd ever imagined. When they stopped, Samuel turned to them. "This is only the beginning. If you want answers, you need to be prepared for what comes next." Ellie met Alex's gaze. "We have to see it through." Samuel nodded. "Then let's get started." Samuel's SUV sped through the desolate roads, its headlights piercing the darkness. Alex sat clutching the ancient map, the weight of their situation pressing down on him. Ellie was silent beside him, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The isolation of the desert felt both oppressive and freeing. "Where are we going?" Alex finally asked. "To a place where you'll be safe, for now," Samuel replied. "If you want to decode that map, you need time and protection." Hours later, they arrived at a forgotten research facility hidden deep in the desert. The building was decrepit, its cracked walls bearing the scars of abandonment. Inside, Samuel led them to a bunker stocked with outdated equipment and old maps. This was once part of a covert program. They left, but it's still secure. Ellie immediately began setting up her instruments, while Alex spread the map across a table. Hours passed in silence as they worked, but their focus was interrupted by a piercing alarm. Samuel grabbed his weapon, his face grim. "They've found us." Before they could flee, the air vibrated with a familiar hum. Alex froze. "It's them." A beam of light engulfed them, and in an instant the bunker dissolved. They stood on an otherworldly plane, the ground shimmering beneath their feet. The beings appeared, their glowing forms radiating calm. "You are here to be tested," one said. "Humanity's survival depends on understanding." The ground shifted, and Alex, Ellie, and Samuel were separated into individual chambers. Alex found himself surrounded by shifting symbols and sequences. Images of Earth's past and future filled his mind. Civilizations rising and falling, moments of destruction and unity. The patterns demanded his focus, challenging both his intellect and intuition. Ellie faced a room filled with equations and star charts. Her analytical mind raced to decode the challenges, but the test wasn't purely intellectual. Visions of human resilience and fragility tugged at her emotions, forcing her to confront humanity's delicate balance. Samuel's test was deeply personal. Memories of his choices, regrets, and sacrifices played before him. A voice echoed in his mind. "Leadership requires cost. Will you bear it?" When the tests ended, the trio reappeared on the shimmering plane. The beings stood before them, their expressions inscrutable. "You have done well," one said, "but the path ahead remains uncertain. Trust what lies within." In a flash of light, they were back in the bunker. The alarms had ceased, and the stillness felt surreal. Alex looked at the map, its symbols now clearer. "We passed," he said softly, "but this is far from over." Ellie nodded. "They've given us tools. Now we need to figure out how to use them." Samuel's voice was steady. "Then we move fast. The forces against us won't wait." As they prepared to leave, Alex felt a strange certainty. The next step wasn't just on the map, it was already within them, waiting to be uncovered. The map's symbols led Alex, Ellie, and Samuel back to the Grand Canyon, this time to a hidden location far from any known trail. Samuel parked near an unassuming rock formation. Ellie studied the map, her expression tense. "This is it. Whatever they want us to find, it's here." Using tools from the SUV, they dug for hours until they uncovered a metallic surface embedded in the ground. Smooth and seamless, it bore no markings, but the moment Alex touched it, the map in his hand began to glow faintly. The symbols realigned and the door slid open, revealing a dark passageway. Descending cautiously, they found themselves in a vast underground chamber. The walls were smooth and lined with faintly glowing carvings. In the center stood a towering obelisk, its surface covered in intricate symbols that seemed to shift under the light. Ellie approached it carefully, her hand trembling. When her fingers brushed the surface, the room lit up with holographic images that filled the space. Earth's history unfolded before them. Civilizations rising and falling, environmental disasters, and humanity's greatest moments of triumph and innovation. "It's a record," Ellie whispered. "They've been watching us for longer than we thought." Samuel's face was grim. "This isn't just history. It's a warning." The images shifted, showing Earth consumed by chaos. Cities collapsed under storms, forests burned, and oceans swallowed the land. But amid the devastation, there were moments of hope. People rebuilding, uniting, and thriving despite the odds. "They're showing us what could happen," Alex said. "The future isn't set. It's up to us." A low rumble interrupted their thoughts. Ellie turned sharply as shadows moved at the edge of the chamber. Armed men emerged, weapons drawn. Samuel cursed under his breath. "I told you they'd find us." The leader stepped forward, his voice cold. "Step away from the obelisk. This isn't for you to see." Ellie raised her hands in surrender. "You don't understand. This is vital for everyone." "It's not your call," the man sneered. Samuel moved swiftly, drawing his weapon. A chaotic firefight erupted, the sounds of gunfire echoing through the chamber. Alex and Ellie ducked behind the obelisk, their hearts pounding. The obelisk began to hum, its symbols glowing brighter. "Get down!" Alex shouted as a pulse of energy erupted from the obelisk, incapacitating the attackers and silencing the room. The air crackled with residual energy, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. Samuel inspected the fallen men. "They'll send more," he warned. Ellie placed her hand on the obelisk again, her expression awestruck. "It's protecting itself. They won't let this fall into the wrong hands." Alex studied the glowing symbols. "We need to figure out what it's trying to tell us, and fast." With the obelisk's message seared into their minds, they retreated into the night. Their path was clearer, but the forces working against them were growing stronger. One thing was certain: the future of humanity now rested in their hands. The obelisk's revelations left Alex, Ellie, and Samuel shaken, but there was no time to reflect. As they fled the canyon, the weight of their discovery pressed heavily on them. The obelisk wasn't just a warning, it was a roadmap. The powers pursuing them would stop at nothing to bury it. Back at their base, Ellie studied the symbols she'd memorized. "These sequences are more than just locations," she said. "They're instructions, a guide to what the beings want us to find." "For what?" Alex asked. Ellie hesitated. "I don't know yet, but the coordinates lead to South America, deep in the Amazon rainforest." Samuel, pacing the room, nodded. "Then we go. But those chasing us aren't just operatives. They're part of a shadow coalition, governments and corporations suppressing knowledge like this for decades. If they know where we're headed, they won't stop." The next few days were tense as they prepared. Using forged identities, they secured transport to a remote region of the Amazon. Exhaustion and paranoia weighed heavily by the time they reached their destination. The coordinates led them to ruins buried beneath overgrowth. Towering stone structures loomed, their surfaces etched with symbols identical to those on the obelisk. "This place," Ellie whispered, "it's ancient, directly connected to them." In the heart of the ruins, they found a chamber. At its center was a pedestal holding a crystalline object that shimmered faintly. Ellie studied it. "It's not just a relic," she said. "It's a key." Before they could explore further, the roar of helicopters shattered the quiet. Armed men descended into the ruins, weapons drawn. Samuel cursed under his breath. "They've found us." The leader stepped forward, his voice cold. "Step away from the artifact." Ellie clutched the crystal tightly. "We can't let them take it," she whispered. Alex stepped forward, raising his hands. "This is bigger than all of us. It's vital for humanity's survival." The leader sneered. "Survival for who? The powerful don't need your salvation." Samuel acted swiftly, firing a shot that scattered the attackers. Gunfire filled the chamber as the crystal's light intensified. "It's reacting," Ellie shouted. The carvings on the walls glowed, and the ground trembled violently. Alex grabbed Ellie's arm. "We have to go." They fled as the chamber collapsed, burying the ruins. The crystal in Ellie's hands pulsed faintly, as though alive. Back at their camp, Samuel scanned the jungle, his expression grim. "That was too close." Ellie studied the crystal. "This isn't just a key. It's part of a larger message, something we don't fully understand." Alex nodded. "And something they don't want us to uncover." The stakes had never been higher. With the artifact in their possession, they weren't just running from danger, they were running toward answers that could reshape humanity's fate. The artifact's faint pulsing illuminated their camp, its glow casting flickering shadows. Ellie leaned over the crystal, her laptop connected to it with a makeshift cable. "This isn't just a key. It's transmitting something," she said, her voice hushed. "A signal?" Alex asked, leaning closer. Ellie nodded. "But I can't decipher its target yet. There's something hidden in the data. If I can crack it, we'll finally understand what they're trying to tell us." Samuel, standing watch near the edge of the clearing, interrupted. "We don't have time for this. If they track us here, we're sitting ducks." Ellie hesitated, glancing at the glowing crystal. "We'll take it with us. Whatever the message is, we can't leave it behind." They packed swiftly, retreating deeper into the jungle. The dense foliage closed in around them, every rustle and distant call setting Alex on edge. The sense of being followed was undeniable, and the crystal's glow seemed both a guide and a beacon for their pursuers. By nightfall, they reached a river. Samuel scouted ahead, returning with news of a hidden boat. "It's small, but it'll get us downstream," he said. They pushed the boat into the water, the currents carrying them silently under the cover of darkness. Ellie continued working, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "This isn't just a message," she said, excitement creeping into her voice. "It's a map, a guide to something buried." "A map to what?" Alex asked. Ellie hesitated. "I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it's massive." Before she could explain further, the roar of an approaching engine shattered the quiet. A searchlight swept across the river, locking onto their boat. Samuel cursed under his breath. "They found us!" The chase was immediate. Armed men in a larger vessel shouted commands as they closed the gap. Samuel steered sharply, weaving through the river's bends. "Hold on," he yelled, guiding the boat into a narrow channel. The larger craft couldn't follow and slammed into the riverbank with a deafening crash. They didn't stop, pushing further downstream until the sounds of pursuit faded. When dawn broke, they reached a secluded inlet and pulled the boat ashore. Exhausted, they set up a temporary camp. Ellie resumed her work immediately, the glow of the crystal reflecting in her determined eyes. "The map points to the Andes," she said, gesturing to her screen. "It's high altitude, remote, and nearly impossible to reach without preparation." Samuel studied the coordinates. "If they're chasing us now, they'll definitely be waiting for us there." Alex examined the crystal, its pulsing stronger than before. "It feels like it's guiding us," he said. "Whatever's there, they don't want us to find it." Ellie looked up, her voice firm. "Then we have to. This isn't just about us. The beings didn't choose randomly. They're counting on us to understand." Samuel nodded, his face set with resolve. "At first light, we move. No more delays." As the trio prepared for the next leg of their journey, the weight of their mission pressed down on them. With every step, their enemies drew closer, but so did the answers. The crystal's light was a beacon, and they knew they had no choice but to follow it, no matter the cost. The journey to the Andes tested their limits. Alex, Ellie, and Samuel pushed forward, driven by the crystal's glow and the coordinates it revealed. After days of climbing, they reached a narrow plateau high above the clouds. At its center stood a towering monolith, smooth and metallic, similar to the obelisk in the canyon. "This is it," Ellie whispered. The crystal in her hand vibrated and glowed brighter. When she placed it into a depression on the monolith, the ground trembled, and a beam of light shot skyward. The monolith opened, revealing a hidden passage. Inside, the walls shimmered with shifting symbols. At the core, they found a massive console surrounded by holographic projections of Earth. Lines of energy crisscrossed the globe, connecting points across its surface. "This is a global network," Ellie said in awe. "The beings created it to stabilize Earth's ecosystems." Alex studied the display. "It's a solution to the chaos they showed us. But why didn't they activate it?" "They left it for us," Samuel replied, "to see if we're ready to take responsibility." Ellie worked quickly, decoding the console's controls. Suddenly, a countdown appeared on the display. "It's a failsafe," she said, her voice tense. If the system isn't activated, the damage to Earth becomes irreversible. Footsteps echoed through the chamber, and armed operatives entered, weapons raised. Step away from the condor, their leader commanded. You don't understand, Ellie shouted. This is about survival, not power. The leaders sneered. Survival for who? The powerful don't need your salvation. Samuel fired the first shot, chaos erupting as Alex and Ellie ducked for cover. The crystal glowed intensely, the countdown ticking toward 0. Can you finish this? Alex yelled. I need more time, Ellie shouted, frantically working. Samuel held off the attackers, buying precious seconds. With moments to spare, Ellie let out a cry of triumph. The console erupted in light, the holographic Earth stabilizing as energy lines connected across the globe. A deep hum filled the chamber, freezing the attackers in place. The beings appeared, their forms shimmering. You have succeeded, one said. The balance is restored, but your journey is just beginning. Why us? Alex asked. Why now? Because your species stands at a crossroads. This system is a gift, but also a responsibility. Use it wisely. The light faded and the beings vanished. Outside, the sun rose over the plateau, bathing it in golden light. Alex, Ellie, and Samuel stood together, the weight of their journey settling in. We did it, Alex said quietly. But this is just the start. Ellie nodded. They've given us a chance. It's up to humanity to take it. Samuel placed a hand on Alex's shoulder. Then let's make it count. Descending the mountain, they carried with them not just hope, but the responsibility to guide humanity toward a future worth saving.